What's going on, everyone? Happy Saturday to everyone. Hopefully everyone is doing well and having a great day so far. Welcome to the Saturday Weather Update for Saturday, June 22nd, 2024. If you're new to my channel, this is where we do daily weather updates, talk about extreme weather, and anything to do with the weather in the United States and sometimes around the world. Today we're going to talk about the current weather forecast for the next several days, and we are also going to talk about what is expected to happen in July. So you'll want to stay tuned for that at the end of this video. Starting off with this from yesterday, there was a flash flood emergency in Las Vegas. No, not that Las Vegas, in Las Vegas, New Mexico. Yes, there was a flash flood emergency where things really got serious. And a quick search on Twitter does show here. Take a look at this rush of water on the roadways in Las Vegas, New Mexico. You can see here there were people driving through flooding waters. Really was a dangerous situation yesterday. And then this person is rafting down in the flooding waters. Yeah, please do not do that. When you see flooding waters, steer clear. Turn around. Don't drown. All right, taking a look at the national hazards. Let's update this so it's the most up to date. And you can see here, take a look at that. You still have excessive heat warnings and heat advisories that are ongoing in the mid-Atlantic region and portions of the Northeast. You know, it's 12 o'clock here in the afternoon in Philadelphia, and on my weather station, it is already 95 degrees. This is serious heat, and the temperature could still go up for another several hours. Yikes. Yeah, not good. You can only imagine what the heat index is. Heat index is already near 100. You can also see back across the Great Lakes, we do have some concerns for flash flooding once again. And once again in New Mexico today as well. And then there are some heat concerns out on the West Coast. Current radar picture shows we do have a boundary that is positioned from west to east across portions of the Great Lakes all the way through New England. And along this boundary, very unsettled, very showery, even some areas of heavier rainfall. You can see here there is one that is moving just north of Albany. You actually have a thunderstorm that's moving towards Albany right now. This cluster will move into Vermont. Then you have a cluster of heavier rain across portion of Michigan. Then you have another area of heavier rain behind us as well. And then when we take a look at the west, you can see here there is still that moisture that's going through New Mexico and Phoenix. Some of this moisture is actually from Alberta. It made its way northwest, and now it's pushing its way back to the northeast. And you can see here that there's going to be some showers and thunderstorms, even heavier rainfall periods at times. Down in southern Texas, extreme southern Texas, you do have some showers today. And of course, there is some showers moving towards Florida today, which will probably exit the picture later in the day from that tropical disturbance that was in the Atlantic. All right, taking a look at the Storm Prediction Center. Yesterday, there were 87 wind reports, 3 were high wind reports, there were 20 hail reports, and 1 large hail report. Total reports, 107 yesterday. Taking a look at today's severe weather risk. Chicago, you're included today, as is portions of Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, which is where Chicago is, portions of Wisconsin, and portions of Michigan. There is also a marginal risk of severe weather across portions of Pennsylvania, mainly northeast Pennsylvania, on up through to portions of the northeast and southern New England, and South Dakota. You do have a marginal risk today, and there are a few marginal risk areas in the Four Corners region as well. Let's go over some of those expected probabilities for today. Tornado, 5% in the slight risk area across Michigan and across portions of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois. Wind is also up there at 15%, and hail is at 5%. Then day 2, there is a slight risk tomorrow across portions of Pennsylvania, northwest New Jersey, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. And the tornado probabilities, it is there for tomorrow. It is 5% across portions of New England. So we'll have to be mindful of that. And this is a day 2 5%. So that's relatively impressive. Wind is 15%, and hail is at 5%. We'll have to see. It's pretty far out for them to do that. We'll have to see if this actually goes up to an enhanced risk later in time, but I'll show you on the HER model why that may or may not happen. Taking a look at Monday, you can see there is a slight risk of severe weather across portions of Minnesota and portions of Wisconsin. We'll have to keep an eye on this as well. Should the capping break for this day, all modes of severe weather could be possible. And you can see there is already a hatched area for this threat. Taking a look at the HRRR model for today, you can see showers and thunderstorms. They're going to continue across the Northeast. They're going to continue across the Great Lakes. You will see localized severe weather this afternoon. I do think a few tornadoes could be possible. Wind and hail will be a big threat as well. But again, a few isolated tornadoes cannot be ruled out in any of these supercells. You can see here, some supercells do get going. You can also see here the HRRR model does try to get a short-lived squall line going across portions of Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. We'll have to keep an eye on that. You can see as we advance into tonight, you can see there continues to be these showers and thunderstorms across portions of the Great Lakes region, and there could be a flash flooding threat with this as well. If there are any training segments that get going, backing this up for a second, you can see showers and thunderstorms once again across the Four Corners region. You do need the rainfall, but these ones that move slowly, like you saw at the beginning of the video, they do tend to cause trouble. As we head into tomorrow, there will be a warm front that tries to push through portions of Maine. Just south of that warm front is where the greatest heating is going to be for tomorrow. And you can see here, we're going to move this into the northeast regional view because I do need you to pay attention to this. You can see there are some discrete cells that do get going. In any of these cells, the discrete ones that are individualized, that's where there could be an isolated tornado or two tomorrow. And you can see as I advance this, as we get further into the afternoon, this threat, it's really great over Vermont, and it continues over to New Hampshire as well. And look at this, Massachusetts as well. It's no solid line, it's discrete supercells. So that's something that has me concerned for tomorrow. Should this get a little bit more impressive, maybe like the HRRR is showing, perhaps an upgrade to an enhanced risk could be needed there. I do agree with the slight risk across Pennsylvania. We're not looking at any major threat there, but it is enough that there will be some scattered reports of wind and maybe even some hail. And you can see at the end of the day, it does try to get a squall line going in northwest Pennsylvania, but it never really becomes organized and really doesn't do much. And then Monday, this system starts to move out. But look at this. Behind there is already another disturbance. Now let's change models. Let's go over to the RGEM model. I want to show you Monday's threat. Here's Minnesota right here. And you can see here, some thunderstorm activity does get going. But there's questions, or at least I have questions at this point, given we're still only at Saturday. Will the capping actually fully break? The parameters are going to be there. There's going to be instability. There's going to be some shear. There's going to be supercell dynamics. If the capping breaks, yes, there could be a pretty significant threat of wind, hail, and even a few tornadoes. This could actually be one of the better tornado threats that we've seen in the last week or so. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Moving on now to the National Hurricane Center. Not a lot to talk about here. Taking a look here, there's a 50% disturbance chance in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll keep an eye on that. There's that disturbance that was in the Atlantic. That's now at 0%. And really, after we get through these two little disturbances here, the Atlantic is going to, the tropics are really going to quiet down. This is from Mike's weather page on Twitter. And you can see here, take a look what happens here. African dust from Africa is making its way across the Atlantic. It's going to come and pretty much shut things off. The Gulf of Mexico, it's going to make its way out to you as well. You can see here, let me zoom in on this. You can see here that there comes the dust. It goes over Cuba, goes over Puerto Rico, and heads right into the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to shut things off for a little while. Moving on now to the flash flood threats today. There's a threat of excessive rainfall across portions of Wisconsin and portions of Iowa, and just north of Illinois, although you are in a slight risk, but this is a moderate risk, so you do want to take this seriously. Like I said, there could be a few training segments today. There's also a slight risk in portions of New England where we saw that there may be a squall line that develops this afternoon. Tomorrow there is a day 2 slight risk across portions of Maine, and a large marginal risk that extends all the way back to portions of West Virginia. And of course, there is a marginal risk across New Mexico, and I meant to show you this. Marginal risk there for today as well, and marginal risk in Florida for today. Days 1 through 7 precipitation. You can see here, the heaviest precipitation It's pretty far up to the north. Northern Vermont, you're going to see some heavier precipitation. You saw where that boundary is stalled, Maine, and then back across portions of the upper Midwest. And then you do have some localized pockets across the Four Corners region, and just a few chances for precipitation in the Mid-Atlantic and Pennsylvania. And look down the Carolinas and up through, well, North Carolina through Virginia. Very dry. I'm concerned about drought. More on that in just a moment. Taking a look now at the GFS, we will use the 6Z run. So 12Z run is still coming in. And you can see here, as I advance the GFS, here comes that system that comes through tomorrow. And then here's the thunderstorm threat for Monday up there in portions of Minnesota. And watch what happens as that tries to come through. It does make another threat on Tuesday evening across Chicago, across the Ohio Valley. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But look what happens ahead of this. You have a southwest flow again. What happens when you have a southwest flow again? Take a look at this. Yep, right along I-95. More record-breaking heat, or near record-breaking. It is going to be really hot. If you think this weekend is hot, the long range is not looking much better. Let's stay with temperatures for now. You can see a brief break does occur, but look what happens as we head into next weekend. Already, the heat is starting to build once again, and it's going to persist for an extended period of time. We're into the following week now. And you can see the heat is continuing. There'll be a brief break up across the Great Lakes, but look out to the west. What's going up out to the west will eventually have to shift back to the east once again. And I can show you now the GEFS. This really tells the tale here. Take a look at this ridge that starts building on Monday once again. And we'll have to keep an eye on this ridge. You will have the downsloping of the ridge. Any disturbance that rides along that could be potential for mesoscale convective systems into the longer range. You already saw, as we're going into Tuesday into Wednesday, there could be one that forms maybe across portions of Minnesota or Wisconsin, and then comes down into the Ohio Valley. We were actually talking about this almost a week ago, and I think it still remains a possibility. And now let's continue to advance this and watch what happens with the ridge. It starts to build back north again. And look at this. It just stays in place day after day after day. But you can see here, once again, going into the following week, we do get this downsloping of the ridge. Where that sets up, there could be potential MCS. And this is an ensemble. Already it is showing little disturbances that happen along this. But you can see here, as we head into July, look at that ridge. Much of the country is in a ridge. Active pattern up in the northeast. New England, you definitely could have thunderstorm threats going into July, but yes, it is going to remain very hot. Let's take a look at the Climate Prediction Center. And taking a look at the 6 to 10 day temperatures, you can see here, it is going to be above average for much of the country, with exceptions to the Four Corners region, and above average and dry out on the west coast. You haven't heard me say much about your weather because, quite frankly, to be honest, there's not much to say. Wildfire season, it's going to continue, and I think it's going to only continue to get worse. Let's take a look at the 6 to 10 day precipitation now, and you can see here, look at this along the east coast. Below average along the east coast, below average along the west coast, except for the Pacific Northwest, above average in the Four Corners region. I think you will make a dent into your droughts. And I think drought conditions are only going to get worse in the east. I'm really becoming concerned. This could be the worst drought in some years unless something magically changes. Take a look at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. Yeah, well above average temperatures for the majority of the country, unless you're in northern Idaho and portions of Washington State. It is going to be very hot. And now let's go to 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook. We can see below average precipitation will continue across portions of the east and in portions of the northwest. You can see some of California does start to get a little bit above average, especially in Arizona, but I think the wildfire threat is going to continue to be a problem for the west coast, and drought is going to be an issue in the east. All right, let's take a look at July now real quickly. Here's July's monthly temperature outlook. Take a look at this. Well above average temperatures expected across much of the east, across much of the Four Corners region into the plains, slightly above average in Texas. July is looking to be much of the same of what we're seeing now. It is going to be very hot. When we take a look at the precipitation, we can see down around the Gulf Coast. Climate Prediction Center is going with above average precipitation across portions of Florida and the Gulf Coast, but the rest of the country, well below average. And you can see here across portions of the Ohio Valley into Pennsylvania, below average. But again, if we do get some of that downsloping of the ridge, not certain where that's going to set up. Right now it's looking like maybe New England. There could be some thunderstorm threats that do get going. And look at this across Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. Well below average precipitation for you expected for July as well. Alrighty, folks, that does it for the Saturday weather update. You can follow me over on X at Climate Data Report, and of course subscribe to my channel down below if you want to stay updated. We'll have something again for you tomorrow. We'll have a YouTube short if need be this afternoon if something extreme pops up. Give this a thumbs up, subscribe down below, share this with anyone you know, leave a comment down below, and remember to hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching, everyone. I will see you all again next time. Have a fantastic Saturday.